So I kind of want to start by just talking about Spriggans in general and like the real history and culture and myth of them, and
Let's
then
do it.
how we adapt that into Avallen and what Avallen says about them, and then ideas we want to bring in. Then we can start brainstorming an encounter based on the
Sure.
idea of the Spriggan, and then we can make something, I guess.
Sure. So tell us what you remember or know about Spriggans,
No, you got it,
from
Spriggans. Yeah.
Spriggans. Yeah. So what? Yeah. What's the background
I mean, I'm
you're
cheating
familiar
because I
with?
have the Wikipedia page here, but I can still tell you from memory and from when we're making the game because this is my favorite monster in Avalon, and the reason why we're here right now is because I haven't done anything with it yet. It wasn't used in the core rulebook, and then we've just made a whole campaign against the Fairy Queen, and I was trying to fit it in somewhere, and it would just felt forced, and there were other options that made more sense, and so it's still not used yet. And so here we are. So yeah, for me, the Spriggan is this. Well, and we have some. This is my favorite thing. This is a statue in Cornwall
Mhm.
somewhere, I think, of a Spriggan, which
Oh
is
yeah. Right.
awesome. This is terrifying, right? It's this creature crawling out of a wall. Imagine if there's a bench there and you could look up
Yeah.
and see this thing above your shoulder. Anyway, they're Fey-like creatures, of course. They're mischievous. They're more malevolent than benevolent, unlike some Fey.
Hmm.
They are noted by having large heads. I think they're supposed to usually have like elderly or yeah, elderly features, like a childlike body with an elderly person's head on top of it. So they're supposed to look deceptively harmless. They look fragile. They look feeble, but really they're quite powerful. They can
Yeah.
control the weather. They can control nature, the trees, the forest, the ground, and they also have super strength as well. So they've got a lot going on for them. And then
Yeah.
my favorite part about them is that I would say I think they like to be offended. I think or rather, they have fragile egos.
Hmm.
They once offended, then they will try and pursue you and harm you, and until then they're fine. So I like this idea of an encounter that involved players knowing that the creature will become hostile when taking offense, and then they're doing their best not to offend it, and it itself trying to take offense at every given possible moment. And it
Hmm.
kind of has this like kind of riddle social challenge encounter to it, kind of similar to like when Bilbo meets Gollum, right? And they have that riddle
Yeah.
battle.
Right.
It's that kind of like
Yeah.
dynamic where,
That
yeah,
that's a good point. I really feel like Gollum is inspired a bit by these legends too. I mean, obviously he's a hobbit that gets corrupted by the ring and so on, but the way he's described is this kind of weird lopsided head that's looking to consume you. Well, I mean, Spriggans, from what I've read, they're not, you know, they're they could be malevolent and tricksy, but they're not trying to eat you for your precious or whatever.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and Dale actually has a good point. Second edition D&D had a Spriggan. That is right. In the Monster Manual, they had a Spriggan, but
But
they're filed under gnomes, and the art for the Spriggan, it looks like a it looks like a it looks like a gnome with a mustache and armor, and then
weird.
the way they describe them, they're like a kind of gnome variant that hates regular gnomes, and they travel in bands. Uh, yeah, it's an interesting interpretation on
Yeah,
on it. So growing up, I didn't understand where that particular. Now in retrospect, yeah, compared to what we're talking about, yeah, I'm not sure where that interpretation comes from.
yeah. I guess that
Uh,
childlike body hates people. I guess kind of in
yeah,
some
maybe.
sense. But honestly, like I don't think they've been done well anywhere really. Like even
Yeah,
searching for Spridgeon on art pages like ArtStation or in Pinterest, there's not really good artwork of them either. Like the best I found was this one.
yeah.
But
I think Magic the Gathering had a good one.
yeah, is that this? This is Wizards
Oh wait,
Hasbro.
are you showing that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. No, there's an actual. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Is
talking
there
about
is there is there Spriggan in Magic?
I think so. I think it was like a
There's two of them. Yeah, I've got them here.
uh yeah, there was a hungry Spriggan,
Yeah, Hungry
and it's like
Spriggan
a
and
weird.
Swirling Spriggan as well.
Yeah, Stories Bridget, I'm not as big of a fan of. I don't think that's just a goblin. But Hunter's Pigeon looks like a weird-headed creature that's kind of abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dale says that yeah, in some stories they were twisted by Fomorian magic.
Do you mean
I've also seen
by
like
giants? Yeah.
yeah, but I've also seen Robert Hunt in the romances. I think they mentioned that Wikipedia article. I
Yeah.
think the book is called Romances of something. Romances of Western England.
Okay.
Popular romances of the west of England.
Yeah.
And they actually there's that whole theory that they're actually the spirits of giants.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So and there's actually a cool book called the Encyclopedia of Fairies by Rebecca something, and she
Yes, that's a great book.
yeah, from the 70s. And so she sort of like traces like the different in her entry. She talks about Bottrell and Hunt, and all these people talk about him and all these different things. If you don't mind, I could read what one of the authors says about Spriggans.
I do not mind.
It.
That sounds fantastic. Also, I'm going to send you a link to the Google Doc in case you don't have it again.
Oh, I do have. I do have it. Okay, so I'm ready to read it. But yeah, in the stories, the fairies on the Eastern Green, in traditions and Hearthside stories of West Cornwall, Bottrell says about them that the Spriggans, quite a different class of beings, are the dourest and most ugly set of sprites belonging to the elfin tribe. They are only to be seen about old ruins, barrows, giants' quoits. How do you say? I don't know. Say quoits and castles and other places where treasure is buried or where they have the charge. They also steal children, leaving their own ugly brats in their place, bring bad weather to blight the crops, whirlwinds over the fields of cut corn, and do much other mischief to those that meddle with their favorite haunts. So I also think that, they were also blamed for a lot of natural disasters that happened for trickery.
Yeah, that's right.
And the whole, the whole switching your baby out, changeling thing comes from that legend as well. So yeah, they were, they
well,
could be
that's a good point. So that's still babies, changelings, that kind of thing. A lot of the Fae stories from across the UK in all the different regions, every region seems to have its own Fae, and a lot of them have similar qualities to them. And pretty much all of them steal babies and leave changelings behind. That's very common. So it's really interesting trying to create a fantasy world where you want there to be distinct kinds of Fae, when a lot of them are very similar in mythology, and instead what you end up doing is trying to pick out, okay, well, what is the slight difference between this myth and this myth and this myth? So, for example, the baby stealing and the changeling part, I would cut that from this version, just because the other ones also use that as well. I would focus instead of the things that are unique to it, which include the fact that it's terribly ugly. They live in ruins, castles, spirit of giants. This stuff is awesome, right? And I think it's so cool as well because it's that they seem to be the embodiment of the emperor who has no clothes, right? They're this tiny childlike being that has this ugly old man's head on it, and they try to kill you if you offend them, right?
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, they're very snowflakey and sensitive.
Yeah, so they beg to be insulted, or they almost like warrant it in a way. Like, what are you? Look at you. You're so strange. And that then encourages them to like go aggressive on you. So it's a very good way to trick people and to trap them. And so it is the wise party that already knows what the Spriggan's all about would know, don't speak about its head. It's very sensitive, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Are you? I got you. Yeah. Looking for a reason. I love that idea too, and I think what you're pointing at is like a good aspect of game design, and which why there is so much variation in terms of how people interpret these monsters over the years.
Yeah.
Because, essentially the idea of these mythological creatures is, oh, bad things are happening, it must be this, or oh shit, this isn't my baby. And instead of us having good, mental health issues and me having like a cognitive disassociation, I'm gonna just say it's a fucking fairy took my baby, right?
Yeah.
We have some more lore in the chat. You want to read that out?
Yeah, I don't think this is lore. I think it's a suggestion from
Oh, suggestion.
Dale.
Oh, suggestion. Okay.
Yeah, maybe they were small face servants of the giants. They used to spy on other peoples. In return for the service, the giants gave the Spriggans the ability to get bigger and stronger, maybe once per day. This was to help them get out of trouble and damage things. And maybe they only get bigger when they get angry or offended. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you go on.
Oh, and I would say that's a good suggestion because, like in our current lore, the Cower, the giants, they're a kind of fairy creature, right? So
No, actually.
the they're a Fithra, right?
Yes.
They're technically other.
Yes.
Okay,
So they are beings
you
of the
play.
other world, like the Fae.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
So,
No,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
not Fae. They're sorry.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not Fae. They're beings from the other world.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, would it make sense for beings from the other world to die and then become other creatures like they are in this legend? Like, would it make sense for giants in Avallen to die and become their spirits become Spriggans?
Which is probably not. No.
Yeah, I mean, because if you do that, then cosmologically, you're implying that whenever one of the fifth draw die, they'll become something else. Their spirit transform,
Yeah.
right?
So I like
So,
Dale's idea
so
of them
yeah,
being servants or something like that. It's interesting.
yeah, associated. I also like the idea of them being again. So we kind of did this last week. We talked about the Pencower, but also having these creatures be associated mainly with the Pencower too, because if they're associated with obviously there could be giants anywhere, but the Pencower are mostly the area where giants are associated with, right?
Yeah.
So having them be associated with that area too could be really interesting and develop. And it's a very tricksy, like, because the Everchild is kind of like the trickster god, right? The kind of like the god with two faces type character.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really happy with this because, yeah, we had someone in the chat last week asking for more Pencower lore, and the fact that this was a Cornish legend helped because we look at the map of the Varnan. The Pencower are in the southwest, and in the UK, Cornwall was also in the southwest. So it kind of felt right to put them there. They also live in cairns and old ruins and old forts, and there's a lot of forts in the Pencower lands. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then I reminded myself that the spirits are giants or related to giants in somehow. And I was like, well, that's perfect because, well, the Pencower are named for the giants. Cower means giants in Welsh. And the Pencower clan are based around the legend of their god, the Everchild, defeating the giants through trickery. And that inspires their clan to their unity and their culture and their way of life. And Dale asks, are all of the giants gone? That's a great question. The answer is no. There are still giants, Cower in existence, but they're all in the other world now. And it is the Everchild and their Fae, the Bubach, that keep the Cower, the giants, trapped in the other world. They stop them from returning to Avallen using tricks and traps and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's a thing that that's actually a very specific sort of plot line that I want to explore later on in some media or stories because I think it's really interesting. Like the Everchild is a really interesting figure to me in this mythology, but we're not gonna do it on stream right now. So wait for that in the future. Wait for that in the future. Because I do think it's a cool story point. All right, so we know a bit about the background of what quote unquote real Spriggans used to be.
Yeah, so there might be spirits of giants related to giants with super strength. They're ugly, childlike bodies. They live in ruins, cairns, castles, have treasure. They can blight crops. They have power over the weather, nature, plants. There might still babies, but we're gonna probably cut that because
put that in red.
Yeah, and then they're sensitive and attack those that offend them. Cool. Let's have a quick review then of what Spriggans are in Avallen as we currently have them. So we have different creatures in the bestiary. We have animals. We have Fae. So Fae are reincarnated spirits that are shaped by the Everones into creatures that are their servants. Then we have the Fieithra. These are the giants, titans, abominations, dragons, giants, Cower. Muckalevy that used to haunt the lands. Then we have fiends. Fiends are human-like monsters born in the darkness of the other world. Like Fae, they can talk and reason to varying degrees, but are far more malevolent than the fair families. I think the Spriggan is a fiend. Yes. So these are likely born of spirits that aren't shaped by the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So these are spirits that are rejected by the gods, and they form by themselves within the other world, and that lends them to being corrupted or evil somewhat.
Sure.
So that is the Spriggan. And then our entry for the Spriggan in Avallen says the Spriggan is an odd creature with the frail form of an elderly person, but with an oversized childlike head. Despite their vulnerable appearance, they hold great physical and magical strength. Spriggan are able to throw trees and seemingly control the weather. However, they do not ambush or attack unprovoked. Instead, they enjoy talking with others whilst attempting to take any opportunity to claim insult. They then use that excuse to destroy the offending party. So, cool. So that's what we're working with. You go
on. Yeah, and that's. I feel like that's a really fun creature to roleplay, right? Just trying to. Do you imagine that? When play like they run to a Spriggan, if the party can identify the Spriggan, that they could use like a lore, like some sort of like the bard can use some kind of skill check to identify the sort of whether or not that's a way to sort of trigger it, or do you just imagine that you just role play it and then once they say something bad, they just like go for the get aggressive?
I think I would probably play it out as a parlay encounter. And its patience would represent how offended it is. And
is that something?
You go on.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe hard. Is that something that you would want to try to integrate into its? So as we develop its stats, is that something you would want to develop like as part of its description? Like,
so I already look. I don't want to big myself up too much, but so for example, we have this position here, and we have its bestiary entry. It's drawn by travelers, which means you'll find it when you're traveling in the wilderness. It is a veteran, hero, or legendary foe. It's elite or mythic, which means you'll generally find it by itself or in a pair. And its creature score is cunning and trampling. And what does cunning do? Let's find out.
So solar or elemental magic. That's okay. Yeah. The solar aspect of it's kind of interesting too. I'm curious about how you would interpret that.
So solar magic is mastery over plants, I think, and things like that. It can. I think that's.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
So cunning. Cunning creatures are tricksy beings that use innate magics, gain power through parlays, and shapeshift. So the cool thing about cunning creatures is their second ability here, if they have it, which this Spriggan would have, which is that if this creature successfully ends a parlay, those of the group that failed the parlay must gift or do something it values, or this creature and its allies with this ability will have +2 to checks, damage, and armor rating against the group that failed.
Okay.
So essentially we have it here is like, this is our catch-all cunning Fae-like ability in the game.
Right.
And we can give that to monsters that then say, well, if you manage to fail a parlay with this creature, you manage to fail your riddle of words, your contest of words with it, then it gains a bunch of buffs to fighting you.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have your Bible, the Legends of Avallen core rulebook with you, that's what Darren just read is on page 182.
Yeah, that's right.
So feel free to check that out. We also have a question, and the good comment from Dale. Perhaps this Spriggan can pass between worlds and continue the service to the giants. Making them agents can be a thing too. Although whether or not, I guess we have to decide on how close the relationship is, because it could also be, if they're like elite and mythic, they might have their own what do you call it, agendas, and whether or not they're still in service to things, that's something that we could definitely chat about.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
kind of interested now in talking about some like extra lore in Avalon. Let's flesh out the Spriggan, where they came from, or where they reside now, or what kind of
yeah.
legends to do with it.
Mm. And, oh,
You gone?
and Dale's also, I think, are there other skills or abilities player characters could use to boost their ability to verbally spar with the Spriggan? Yeah, so finding an advantage with the Spriggan too, I think as you develop this and figure out what their sort of motivations are, that'll sort of reveal what kind of advantage you could gain against them, I imagine, in a parlay, right?
Yeah,
Understanding.
exactly. Yeah. So there are plenty of social abilities that players gain access to in Legends of Avallen. For
Mhm.
example, the professions, the bard, the merchant, the priest, the socialite, and the thief all have access to social abilities that help them with social encounters, with parlays, and of course there's magic you can use as well. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh,
So,
you go.
so, so, getting to the heart of the lore and so on. We imagine that the Sprigians were somehow allied with the giants, right? With
Yeah,
the
I think.
tower,
Yeah,
the
go on.
giants.
I have an idea, but
Um,
you go first.
um, and so, if they're allied with the giants, what's the motivation for that? Especially if they're intelligent creatures, right? Like, because often if you're in service to a creature, either you're like a mindless thrall that just respects power, or there's something in it for you. Um, the way we've sort of read the Spriggan and as it been cutting is it they might cower or admire the strength and want the power. Possibly that could be uh, okay if they can grow in size. Is that an ability that comes from them naturally, or is it something that they get from the giants, from the cower?
Is that
That's
actual lore? Or is that something that was
no.
suggested? Yeah,
I'm just talking.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just wondering what to decide on, right?
So I
How?
can I tell you my idea? This
Please,
is
yeah, go ahead.
where I'm at, and see if you can riff off of this.
Okay,
I like the idea of them being tied to the giants,
yeah.
because one, mythology, two, that's an interesting place to put it in our lore, and three, it means it has a reason why they're a pen coward creature as opposed to another creature, right?
Right.
And so the fact that they have big heads, well, my idea is we know that the coward are not the smartest of creatures. They're giants, where they follow the trope of being big, strong, but dumb, right? And of
Yeah.
course, it is the Everchild that managed to outwit the Erd coward, like the progenitor of the giants, to force them all back into the other world. So that's part of the lore. So what if we have this idea that the Fieithra, these abominations, once ruled Avalon, and they must have ruled the other world as well. So they might have had a way to interact with souls and spirits there. And we know that
Okay.
today, quote unquote, today in Avalon, the Everones shape spirits that they like into Fae, right? So what if the
Mm.
Fieithra could also shape spirits into like their own versions of Fae, like their
Okay.
own creatures? So what if the Spriggan was a product of the coward, the giants? And I like
Sure.
the idea that the coward were obviously dumb, and they had at some point the foresight to realize they lacked intelligence, and so they crafted a creature that was kind of opposite to them to kind of
Mm.
complement them. So they made something small and with a big head, because that's what the giant's image of something that must be smart is obviously not like them
Sure.
and with a huge brain.
Oh
And so
yeah.
that's what they made, and that's why it's this horrible, ugly thing, because it's crafted by a dim-witted giant being.
Mhm.
What do you think?
No, I love that idea. It's
You
fun,
love
and
it? Yay!
yeah, but it also sort of builds our cosmology in a way where the implication then is that other creatures are closely allied to the other Faithra, right?
Yeah, and now I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking, what creatures did the Drake make, if they made
Yeah,
anything at all?
the Regmeg. What did
Yeah,
Afunk make, and so on, and
yeah,
or how do they? And that means too that there's more stakes now when you die to a creature Faithra, because
yes,
that
yeah,
could mean that when you die and your spirit's like wandering, but they're sort of a part of that. There's a chance that you could be corrupted by the creature that killed you, and that's
yeah,
kind of interesting too,
yeah.
right?
And then we also
Uh,
have the idea now that there's still creatures out there that might want to try and make the Fiethra return. Right, if the Sprigans are still somehow tied to the coward, they might be
mm,
searching for a way to overcome the Bubak and release the Coyote back into Avallen, right?
Yeah.
And then there's
So
even like people that might die and be reincarnated as Sprigans. Well, then they are now part of this force that's trying to bring the Coyote back. So that's really exciting to me, and that's
yeah.
just came into our heads just now, and it's awesome.
All right, write it down. Write it down.
Yeah,
Put it into words. An idea
yeah,
is a real idea until you write it down.
yeah. Let's put it down. Are you writing or am I
So,
writing? Are you already going? You write
you
that
can write
part.
it. You can write it.
Um,
Yeah, I'll write that part. So the
yeah,
Phaethra
you write that part.
have the ability to shape souls in the other world,
Like the other ones. Yeah.
like everyone's. Do you think? But it's not like the or like it's
Well, more like the Everone's does it like the Phaethra before them, because the Everone's
right.
gained the Phaetra's powers when they bested them, right?
Yeah.
Shapes, souls into Sprigans.
So that's what so Dale, you're mentioning that maybe the Giants were banished and Sprigans have swapped roles with the Giants. The Giants are now relying on the Sprigans for something. And if the Giants made the Sprigans somehow and shaped them and imbue them with a certain kind of power and perception, then definitely they could be. The Sprigans would benefit from reinstalling the coward to power too, right? And trying to find a way to do that. So I could see that being a possible adventure thread. So I like the irony of the dumbest of the beasts creating the smartest, the most intelligent of the of the fiends or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's small, child, and I guess ironically it's childlike, right? Which is like the Everchild, which is what bested them in the end. Small childlike creature with a huge head.
No spoilers on that on the stream, because that's sure. Something I want to do that I'm developing behind the scenes, or I want to develop behind the scenes with you, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. Basically, can I talk about that? No, I probably shouldn't talk about that.
I mean, you
I don't make any promises.
But sure.
Oh no, like we're just so Darren and I have like knocked around the idea of doing either a collection of short stories or a novelization of the Wild Hunt in Avallen to explore the everyone's origins kind of thing, and show how like their mortal journey sort of became turning to the gods as a reflection of the kind of like hero's path that similar adventurers and heroes can take in Legends of Avallen. So I think that's something I really want to explore, how the Everones came to be. And especially through the lens of the Everchild, who I think is a really interesting figure. So they shape souls of Sprigans, knowing they're dumb. Small child creature with a huge head. And Sprigans are servants. I mean, and when we say servants too, like I want to keep them because they are cutting, right?
Yeah.
So they're servants, but they're like self-serving, I think is what I'd like to.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like it services them to put the counter to power, but really that's because they want to benefit from whatever power structure there is, right? To eat and steal and covet whatever they please.
Is there a better word than servants then, or is it just we should put a caveat there?
Servants, maybe cohorts or allies, maybe, or supporters.
I mean, made to be servants, but now advocates of the return.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like a little idea like that, it has vast implications. So we always have to be careful too about what we end up adding into the minion. Maybe they're minions.
That's good.
Minions, yeah. So, but yeah, I like this idea. I think it's a fun idea.
Yeah. So here's a really good important point that we should bring up that maybe other people might fall into, because I do it all the time, where I get an idea and then I have to make it symmetrical. So I have to apply it to everything else. So, okay, we just come up with the idea that the coward made these Sprigans as their agents, their minions. Now I'm thinking, well, what did every other Phaethra make? What did the dragons make? What did the Avunk make? What did the boars make? But we don't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some didn't make something. Maybe some made 3 things made instead of 1 thing. And also, we
Sure.
have
Sure.
this idea that the giants are very humanoid-like, right? They are huge creatures
Right.
with arms and legs. We have this idea of thumbs and crafting. It might be that none of the other faiths would have made anything at all. Maybe only the giants made something because
Sure.
they're
Sure.
more human-like than the others. I mean, how's a dragon going to make something? But then also maybe a dragon does make like fire creatures or something. You know, they breathe life into
Right.
things. Like we could go either way. The point is, you shouldn't get attached to an idea and immediately replicate it everywhere because that's a habit that I have that
Yeah.
Kurt is trying to take me away from,
Yeah.
which is really
And that's
good.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's a really good catch. You're right. It doesn't necessarily have to be symmetrical. Like everything you do should be should be in service of the world and of what makes sense for storytelling and so on. And sometimes, the world isn't life isn't always symmetrical and perfect, like in perfect boxes, and that's okay too.
yeah,
Um, but it's still an interesting thread to consider. Like it should still be considered, right? Like what does it mean for others to make that, and is it meaningful? And if it's not meaningful or not interesting, then you don't have to go down that path. So
yeah,
I still think it's okay to talk about. Yeah. Okay, but fun. Yeah, you're on the road. Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, we just put them in Avalon. Now I'm wondering if we want to talk about like how they might be encountered or encounters
Yeah.
previously. Like maybe there's a legend that we could talk about an encounter
Yeah.
that's happened before the Spriggan that the
Yeah.
players could learn about, so that they can know how to deal with one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think part of that is considering the questions of their motivations and why they act how they act, right?
Yeah.
Um, and Dale again has good thoughts on that. Like, did they lose something when they were banished to make them agents to get them in the world? And like, why do they want to bring the Pencara back? Like, what do they want? I think that's really the heart of the question, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, what are things they want? Like, why do they do the things they do? Like, even though they're not like they're not doing the changeling thing, like what's their motivation?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So why do they help the Cower, and why do they attack when offended, right?
Yeah.
And why do they hang out around ruins? Do they hang out around ruins and treasures? Maybe not treasures, maybe just ruins and stuff.
And
Hmm.
and the interesting thing about talking about these motivations, right, is we're modern people, right, with access to all the knowledge in our fingertips, and it's really easy to fall into. And we could use whatever language we need to get the ideas done, like psychoanalytic babble and so on.
Sure.
But I guess what I'm getting at is the reason why legends and stories exist in the first place, because that was a form of psychology, right? In a way, like when the famous book "A Hero of a Thousand Faces" by Joseph Campbell, like, and describing like mythology and so on, and how these represent different things. Like, what do these guys represent, and what do they want? Do they have a what's it called inferiority complex? Basically, they have weird inferiority complexes, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they have an inferiority complex because the giants fucking shaped them, and this dumb creature basically made them. And they have, they're pretty bright, but they look ugly, and they didn't can choose their place in the world.
Yeah.
But they deserve to be as great as everyone else.
Yeah, you're right. They're intelligent enough to realize that they were crafted poorly by cumbersome hands. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Which I guess maybe that makes them resent the Koa, so we might have to fix that. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, it could be like this tension. So, like, I don't necessarily think they want, like, as Dale suggests, that they want the power of to be rulers, like, because they have this weird thing, right? They're insecure, so they understand that they can't be the guys in charge. But what they can do is manipulate the guys who can be in charge, who are the giants.
Yeah.
Right. They can't go into the world and become a faith god themselves. They know that. They're smart enough to know that they can't dominate people, but what they can do is either manipulate people or try to take this kind of superior position for whatever their sense of morality is, which is like, oh, they insulted my honor, because honor is really important in Avallen, right?
Yeah.
And so they have this twisted sense of honor, which is they can do anything to you if they fucking insult you, if they insult their honor. So and that's a really interesting creature too, right? They have a twisted sense of honor, and part of having a twisted sense of honor is also having a twisted sense of your place in the social pecking order, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think by nature, like they're established to be powerful beings, right? They have super strength, they can do powerful magics, but that's not enough. They're still just a threat for 4 heroes, really. And it's probably because they can't work together, right? Because they're so easily offended, they can't.
Exactly. Yeah. So they would be really great if they could like fucking organize, but they can't because they just tear each other down. And so they're like Reddit mods. I don't know if you're familiar with that reference, but
not exactly. But I'm familiar with Reddit mods.
Just kidding. If you're a Reddit mod, please take no offense.
Yeah, I mean, technically, I'm a Reddit mod of a dead Reddit somewhere. So
yeah. Well, Reddit is tricky. They always have to. It's hard to manufacture a subreddit. It has to be organic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that could be a future plot thread too, right? What if several Spriggans in the future did get past themselves? That would be a formidable force, right? Like if they were able to actually organize. But to this point, they haven't really. Yeah. Bad guys always working. Yeah, bad guys always work against each other. Because it's a 0-sum game. Yeah. So if their whole thing is exalting themselves because of their insecurity, they're just always going to also work against themselves in that sense, right?
Yeah, I kind of like making it even more tragic. Like, I think they know that if they work together, they could do it, but they just can't stand each other. You know what I mean? There's something else about their nature that just prevents it from happening. Oh.
Right.
Okay, so why do they hang around ruins? So I already have an answer for this as well. And
okay, is your answer the fact that they have a perception that those are like great places that could be great again, like ruins are like traces of great civilization, right? Yeah. So they're kind of they're like hipsters about it.
Kinda. I think the reason is here's your Welsh word of the day.
Okay.
It is. I'll write it on. I'll write it here so you can try to read it.
Shit. Fuck. All right, we got this.
Your Welsh word of the day is here.
Cornish.
Dude.
No.
That's pretty great. That's pretty great.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right. How would you say it?
And this is supposed to have a little arrow above it, but I don't know how to write that. It's, Cornish. You got it right, exactly.
Cornish. All right. Yeah. Good. Of course, if I were speaking like an American, I would say Corwitheri.
Yeah. But you did it. Yeah, it would be like, Cornish. Cornish. Yeah, Kauri. Yeah. That's right.
Oh, that's good.
So do you know what this is?
Is that a castle? And Kor is like a castle?
It is not, I'm afraid. That's Care.
Oh, Care. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, Kor is that's right. I do know that.
Forget this word. This one's more obtuse. You might know this one.
You
could guess.
By the way, Darren is a big etymology nerd.
Yeah, huge etymology nerd, and I've studied some Welsh as well.
Yeah. No. Guess is in the chat to help me out here. Carry. Like a what do you call it? Like a crypt?
I give you a clue. We've been talking about them.
Like. All right, I'll tap out. So.
This is the Welsh plural for Cawyr.
Oh shit! All right.
So this is giants.
I see.
This core means chorus or assembly or something like that. So this is the assembly or the gathering of giants.
Oh, did we write about that in the lore? Hold on, I want to make sure.
Quite possibly.
Oh no, I vaguely remember that now. I need to go to the locale section. I did a lot of the it's one of those things where we have Korekeri. That's one of the locations in the heart of Penkaura's territory. The arrangement of 50 huge slabs of stone erected by the Kaur Fithra when they ruled the land, called Korekeri, or the Court of Giants. We interpret it as Court of Giants.
Cool.
And the purpose is understood by nobody living. But it's known that if one were to draw up the arrangement of the stones, the relative position of the stones etched in the parchment could be likened to the shape of a great eye peering up to the sky, or a cartographer like the gaze of a tireless sentinel. The druids of the Penkaur hold congregations amongst the stones only for the most important rituals, at which times the stones glow with a faint, eerie light that tends to make attending celebrants uneasy. So we do have that in Avallen in the Penkaur lands.
So do you know where I got it from?
Is it from a real place called Korekedi?
Yes. Do you know what it is? Can you guess? Now you know the description of it.
Is it Stonehenge?
It is Stonehenge. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So what Stonehenge in Welsh is Cornish, the court or the gathering or the chorus of giants.
Yeah, and that was the inspiration for obviously that entry too in Legends of Avallen. It's
Yeah.
just a weirder version of Stonehenge.
Yeah. So my point is that we've already kind of established that the Coward have ruins about, and they're very simple, right? It's just stones slammed together, put on top of each other. It's not quite grand as a temple. So again, they're trying to make things, but they're not as good at it as humans are, as people are. We have that kind of in the mythos. So it makes sense that the Spriggans are drawn to these places because they were used to be gathering points for the Coward, for the giants, right?
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yes, the Spriggans feel there's power in those stones. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ruins of Penkaur, I guess civilization in a way. Ruins of Penkaur culture.
Yeah.
Scattered.
And that's definitely something to explore in the future. Like, what does that mean? What does like the Penkaur culture mean? Because like obviously we have a bunch of like legends from the past about the Fithra and the Penkaur and everyone's, but history is written by the victors, kind of thing. And what that really means and what that was, only the Fae and the everyone's really know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be something I like to explore in the future. I think it's interesting.
So I guess the last thing we need to write is why do they want to help the Coward?
Yeah.
And I guess they're the creators, and then we've kind of said it already, right? They're the creators, and they have the power to kind of make it so no one ever offends them again, I guess. Like, if they're in league with the most powerful thing in town, then no one would dare question a Spriggan. Is that, like, their motivation fundamentally?
I think so, yeah. I think they feel that in terms of the power structure and their sense of honor, they have a sense that they need the giants in order to, because they couldn't rule everything by themselves, right? It's like the trope of like the tiny guy with the muscle, like the muscle and the brains, right? Like they're the brains, but they need the muscle, and they can sort of like puff themselves up and become powerful, but not anywhere near that the giants can do, and not in anywhere near the numbers that the giants originally did. Because I guess like in the sense that the giants are solitary creatures, but they were still better socially than the Spriggans were in a way.
As Dal says, they need to bring the Coward back so they can rule from behind them.
Yeah. And in some ways, and maybe from the Penkaur's point of view, we don't have to decide on that now.
Yeah.
In some ways, the Spriggans are kind of like the familiars, right? Like they create these spirits and companions. It's like humans creating AIs. We get obsessed. They're your assistant, your assistant that you created to do a bunch of stuff for you.
Can we talk about now like a legendary encounter, like a old hero encountering a Spriggan, and like make a short story, kind of a tale of what happened?
Sure.
Yeah. I've done a lot of leading now because we've been doing like the Avallen backstory. This is the creative writing side. I'm gonna pass the baton on to you and make you brainstorm some stuff.
Sure. So what does it mean for a group of heroes to meet a Spriggan, right?
Or just one. But yeah, a group or one. Yeah.
No. What does it mean for a group of heroes to encounter a Spriggan, right? And so they could be kind of intelligent. Either it could be the heroes are given like an adventure hook, but what happens is that was like some sort of lie or trick by the Spriggan themselves.
Oh, sorry.
Like
To be
that's
clear, I'm not thinking about encounters yet or GM encounters. I'm thinking
oh,
about
okay.
a story that the players might come across about the Spriggan or an encounter with a Spriggan that would
Oh,
help them understand how to deal with one. Do you see what I mean?
okay, sure. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I see where you're going with this now. So the heroes, what is the core of a good story for the heroes meeting Spriggan? I think in this case you can have and again, this is just stream of consciousness, so
Yeah.
shoot down any of the bad ideas. So the Spriggans, there could be a Spriggan that is let's actually place it. Let's situate it in Cody in County. And maybe the druid. There's a story of a Spriggan that began to haunt Korikeri and
Hmm.
interrupted the sort of druidic. There's a regular gathering, like an annual, sort of like Stonehenge, right? Like an
Sure.
annual druidic gathering. And there's a story of a Spriggan that coveted the area and began killing or began sort of driving off a druid trying to take. Again, it's starting to sound adventure hooky, so stop me if it sounds too adventure hooky.
Sure.
Because that's where my mind is going. And the Spriggan wanted to be a part of it, right? Because from his point of view, the Korikeri belongs to his what do you call it? His
Well, his people, his culture,
his people, yeah, his culture, his
history.
culture. It belongs to him, and so he would sort of ask them probing questions about it and take offense for not being basically invited to the gathering of druids because he wants to belong. Um, and so the druid, so that the archdruid basically goes into a parlay with the Spriggan, negotiating with it because it's a dangerous creature, right? And it's and they don't have the means to kill it, and the festival is coming soon, and so he basically tricks the Spriggan, or he has a battle of wits with the Spriggan, and the Spriggan is basically allowed to officiate a ceremony, but the ceremony they do is a spell that basically binds the Spriggan into the other world where he can't come back.
Oh, dude, I love it. Where did that come from?
We're just talking.
Yeah, but it came from your brain. Yeah, I like that. So
Well, no, but that's also inspired kind of like by the whole golem thing, right? It's like the golem legend that Tolkien refers to, of which again, if he's inspired with Spriggan, that's basically it. Like the Ring of Stones is something that he covets. It's his precious, so to speak, because it's tied to his lord. So it's basically Golem. It's the golem legend, but tied into this world.
spreads the Spriggan to be calm if they were, or if he were to be calm and officiate their. No, I guess they're not supposed. Say pacifies the pacifies the Spriggan by offering its own ceremony. It can officiate, right? Then the ceremony is actually a binding ritual. Yeah.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah,
So there has to be sort of there's like a bait and switch there,
yeah.
where by participating in the ritual, the Spriggan thinks that he'll have sort of he'll have power of the stones, but something gets switched. There's a bait and switch from the archdruid, who's very wise, and binds the Spriggan, and he can no longer enter the mortal realm, kind of thing.
Yeah, I love it. So I guess there needs to be maybe at the beginning that the Spriggan maybe causes some damage somewhere or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chaos to show its power. To show its power. Yeah.
Yeah. Dale's suggesting, could they be bound to defend the stones? That that's an that's an interesting thing too, like binding him to the druids rather than to the
Like to a
rather than
purpose. Yeah.
to the giant. Yeah, but then that makes them. The only issue with that idea is it makes them more less fiendish, right? It's like, and it's possible. I'm not saying it's an impossible idea.
Yeah.
It's like making a devil a guardian angel, which is a cool idea. It can be a cool idea.
But
But
that's the kind of thing that you only want to happen once, and you probably want the players to do it, not the
sure,
legend. Because
yeah,
otherwise, if that's the legend, then it implies that then you could do that to all Spriggans. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then that sets that as like a thing that the players will then want to do for themselves.
yeah. Or how do I bind the Spriggan to me to always defend me?
Yeah.
Rather than being like this kind of devious creature that the best way to deal with it is just to get rid of it entirely.
Yeah.
Which is a bit more dangerous, right? Like the at any time these should feel like dangerous creatures.
Yeah,
I think, because if you don't, if you're able to bind them to your will, to a mortal or a human will, that by its nature makes them a little, it twists the desire to tame them a little bit, I think, or how you interact with them. So yeah, I'm still keen on the idea of banishing them, which it's also a kind of Rumpelstiltskin type thing, right? Like Rumpelstiltskin to me strikes me, reminds me of that kind of legend too, of a Spriggan.
Yeah, for sure.
Or Super. Do you read any Superman? Are you familiar with Superman mythos at all?
I mean, some, but like I'm not an avid consumer of Superman mythos. Why? What are you thinking?
There's like a creature from another world,
Mhm.
and similar to Rumpelstiltskin, Superman, he like fucks with the world because he's very magic, and he has to like spell his name correctly. I'm trying to remember what the name of the creature is. With Superman villain with weird name. What is it? It's Mr. Mixyzpitalik.
Oh, I have heard of him, I think, actually.
Yeah, so he's like this creature, like this wizard creature, trickster.
I can spell that.
So
you write it in the Google Docs. I can put it on stream.
Yeah. He's definitely derived from these kind of legends of like Rumpelstiltskin and like.
Oh yeah, I think I have seen.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I've seen this guy. Yeah.
Mixie, yeah. So he's a fun villain too, and I think in order to get rid of him, Superman has to like spell his name correctly or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh no, he has to get him to say
his name backwards.
Backwards, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I do know this guy.
Yeah. So yeah, silly. So I'm not saying we use that because I think that's
but that is. I mean, this clearly is some kind of Celtic inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Like he looks very leprechaun-y, and that part of the idea of making him say his name backwards, making him disappear, is very much tied into the legends of in Celtic myths, where all the heroes will have some kind of Achilles heel, essentially, that undoes them. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mixyzpitalik tells, just in the Wikipedia, he tells Superman that he's a jester in his home dimension, explaining why he uses powers to play practical jokes. But one day he finds a book that tells him the world. And that's an interesting dynamic too. Like, in a sense, the Spriggans also have that like kind of, because they're smart, right? So maybe they're also like the jesters to the Pencower, right? Like
entertainers. Yeah.
Because jesters are really powerful because satire and jokes and so on are also very cutting. So one, you want to be entertained, but if your satire is too cutting in a world of honor and Valak society and or Iron Age society, and even for the Pencower, that's like a double-edged sword. Like, how far do you go? Like, yeah, you want to be funny and entertain them and tell the truth and so on. But if you're too smart, they'll fucking crush you because they're the ones with the power. And so that inferiority complex too of like I think that's part of the motivation of like, for example, in the story we're telling about the Spriggans, he wants to sort of bully the druids, right?
Yeah.
Like he's trying to assert his intellectual dominance over these creatures. Like he knows better, and so that's why he's trying to find offense and drive them away. But the wise Archduid finds a way to overcome that and of course, finding what that means. That's the tricky part, right? How do you?
Okay, I have to pick your brain, Kurt. Like, where did that
Yeah.
idea come from of tricking the Spriggan with the ritual? Like, agree, like because it's a perfect, wonderful story. The Spriggan wants to be involved. They bully their way in. The Archdruid says, "Okay, fine, we acquiesce. We'll let you be involved. Here is a super special thing that you can do." It fills its bitty big boots. It does the thing, and then it disappears. Like, it's perfect. Where did you get the idea from? Where did it? You just
Well,
said it. Where did it? I want teach me, senpai.
Well, no, because that's what myths and legends are, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, before we get to that, so Dale, I just want to comment on Dale's thing. I want to make sure we address it. So his subconscious is fighting against the binding, eventually breaking the spell and destroying the druid, but forever being bound to the circle. The druid spirit is also tied to the circle, and the Spriggan is destroyed. And that could be interesting too. Yeah, like maybe it's a sacrifice too, right? Maybe what the druid does is a sacrifice, and something's given up. We could go either direction with it.
Yeah.
It could either be the druid tricks him and gets rid of the Spriggan, or the druid knows that this will sacrifice him, but he does it for the greater good, and it binds him to the stones and makes sure that no other Spriggan or tower can sort of attack it. And it doesn't have to be Cordy carry, by the way. It could be a different.
Yeah, that was my only critique of your tale was is that
that's where it started, but
yeah.
it doesn't have to be Cordy Candy. It could be a different.
Yeah.
It could be a different place, obviously, a different area. And as for where ideas come from, I think that's just like how creativity works in general, right? Like, you just try to keep apprised of, like, the fact that I was able to think about this in our conversation relate to a Superman villain from like the 50s, which is self-related to Tolkien, which itself is related to these original facts. As creators and as writers, we are trying to create things for our generation, but the things that we create are from a lineage derived from the stories that people told people. And that's a beautiful thing about culture, which is we're constantly reinventing. And that's what all I'm doing, right? I'm just trying to take these things into me, figure out what it means for the story we're telling, and reinvent it in a way that makes sense to me.
And that's what I've really come to appreciate with this project, in a way, in that from the get-go, I deliberately didn't make it historical, right? I didn't want to recreate Celtic Britain. I wanted to make a world inspired by it. And the reason why that is because we're not making history, we're making a game, right?
Yeah.
So then everything we put into the world has to then be reinterpreted through this this lens, of interactivity and gameplay and game mastering and player space. And that then just, it tints everything just slightly, where it has to be given some kind of purpose, and that just twists it just a little bit to make it its own thing. Avallen's its own thing compared to Celtic mythology, but that's fun as well because we're making something new from things they've gone before to pass it on and expose people to things they might not have seen before. Okay,
I love that. Yeah.
I love your story. I think I'm going to make a Spriggan now, so I have a stat block here.
All right. So this is Darren's specialty. Is stat blocks and numbers.
Yeah.
This is basically any stat block in any book is always Darren because he's much better than I am.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, walk me through this. So this is the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
So when you're making a stat block, my instinct is to start at 000 and then work it from there.
Yeah. So we're gonna make one using the Avallen Game Master's book, essentially.
Okay.
So I just have a pre-made template here, but there's templates in the book. Now we have the type, we have the attributes, we have the equipment, the health, and then what loot they produce, and then their abilities. So we'll start from the top. They're a Spriggan, that's easy. What type they are. They're a fiend, as we said before. And then we need to decide what tier of foe they are. Whether they're elite, which is an enemy worthy of 2 heroes, or a mythic foe, which is an enemy worthy of 4 heroes. So, because the Spriggans often work by themselves, we can either have them be a creature that has a few allies. Maybe these are plant creatures, or plant fiends, or something else, or just something that's a challenge just by itself. And for simplicity's sake, I'm going to make it an elite encounter. That's just easier for us to make right now. Which means it's worthy of 2 foes. Yeah, go on.
And to clarify too, like, so in the book, you, as we said before, they can be either elite or mythic.
Yeah, and these are just suggestions. It's just
yeah,
exactly.
but that's what I like about your system too, because like the place where you started was giving the fishing rod, right? And and sometimes that's what I don't like about D&D or what those kind of like people sort of take them as a gospel of stats, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then they just get locked into like the specific numbers of each thing rather than like the spirit of what these things should
Yeah,
be.
exactly. So like we've already said the Spriggans like to be alone, they can't stand each other, so it's not gonna make sense you're gonna have a horde of Spriggans. So that's where they're
Yeah.
like this, they're just by themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, and we know that the schools are gonna be cunning and maybe trampling. But again, these are suggestions, so I'll write this down here. Cunning, trampling. And then we need to decide what level, what tier our heroes are at. Are they veterans, heroes, or legends? And then we'll just go for veteran.
Yeah, veteran sounds good.
Veteran. I think that's levels like 5 till something. Okay, so we've got that down, and now we're going to scroll up to our character creation section. Actually, let's use the bookmark instead.
Dale notes that Sandspur from the Spiderwick Chronicles was a Spriggan.
Cool. We should find that.
Spiderwick Chronicles. That's the one that was illustrated by Tony DeTerra-Lizzi, right? Am I wrong?
It's also that you know that. Okay, so veterans are level 7 to 9. Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, love that artist. Shout out. So okay, cool. So
veteran tier. These are the attribute ranks for an average veteran tier foe. 3, 2, 2, 1. So we need to decide what attributes they should have for 3, 2, 2, 1. So what's their best attribute? Well, it's going to be wit, right?
Wit.
Yeah.
I think wit. You imagine that they're witty and that they're because they can grow. They have some kind of vigor.
Yeah.
But you imagine that their spirit because they're so self-conscious, like they're so maybe it's a bit on the lower side because it's so fucking insecure.
I agree. I agree. I think it's perfect. And in fact, because we don't have to do exactly what the game book says, not just because I'm the creator, I can change what I want, but because a game master should be able to change what they want. I want to make the spirit even lower. I'm going to make it 0, and then I'm going to give them an extra vigor as a result of that to make them actually super strong and have the spirit be abysmal. Which means, again, so for a for the players, Dale mentioned this earlier, like, can the players have an advantage against them? Well, yes, they can have advantages using their abilities. But also, if they know that their spirit is so low, well, they can attack them from that angle. And in a parlay, only make the checks against their spirit instead of their wit. If they can find a way to maneuver a conversation in that way. And they'll be very easy to succeed, Yeah.
So if you can make them feel really bad about themselves and like pieces of, if you convince them that they're pieces of shit, they'll retreat on their own.
Yeah. So then we have suggestions here for the armor rating, which is 6, and then the weapon damage, which is an average of 7. So we'll just write that down, and then we'll move on. We'll scroll down, and then we are making. You gone?
I want to ask you, how come you sort of audibled immediately into 6? Is hide always AR6? Like
no, that's just what the table says.
Oh, you look at the table.
Yeah.
On which page?
Page 177.
Ooh, look at us. See, we're if you're watching this and you're making your own things, you refer to page 77. Oh, there you go. So veteran. Oh, okay, I see what you did there. So the original attribute ranks were. Oh, okay. Sorry, I see it on the left side. I was just looking at the Google Docs. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. All right, I'm there. I'm with us again. I'm
cool.
there.
Now we're scrolling down to page 179, and we're going to elite foes. So an elite foe, so that's just the basic rules for just any foe, and then we customize them based on how powerful they are. So hordes will be weaker than that, elite foes will be stronger than that. So an elite foe is much tougher, takes up 2 slots in the fight, so it's worth 2 heroes. It can hold 2 edges, it begins with 2 of them, so we'll make a note of that somewhere actually. Elite foe can hold 2 edges, for example. And then elite foes can attack areas of enemies. It's great. It can exert itself and its armor, so that's part of its health, right? So it can exert, then it can break its armor, then it's wounded.
Now, when you talk about the Spriggan's armor,
yes,
what do you imagine that means specifically for Spriggan? Are
Yeah,
they actually
exactly. So I had a thought about that
hide
for a
their
second. I wrote
skin?
down hides, but I don't know if that's. It really
Like,
depends
are
on
they wearing
how
like
we want to depict a Spriggan, which we haven't
yeah,
decided yet, actually.
are they wearing like makeshift armor that they put together from like stones and leaves and wood? Like
That sounds cool, actually. Right? That just sounds cool.
yeah,
Makeshift armor. I mean, that's probably part of the description, but we'll just call it makeshift armor for now. And I'll put in
yeah.
brackets here stones.
Stones high. Like if they call in animals, maybe if they have the ability to call animals, like what Dale suggests.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes they can help them, but sometimes they just eat them, and then they also like
Yeah.
use their skins and bones for armor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Then we say they're usually medium or large in size. Okay. I think but we know these things are small, they're not large. And then attributes, one more than the NPC guidelines. So they actually have one more attribute because they're elite. I feel weird sticking that in agility to make it 3. Maybe the spirit shouldn't be 0. Maybe that makes it too easy in a parlay. And it just being 1 is still significantly lower for a veteran.
Sure.
For a first-person hero.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Then abilities, they have 1 more than the NPC guidelines. Okay, so how many abilities should they have? Veteran 3, so they can have up to 4 abilities if you want them. Cool, I'll write that down. 4 abilities. And wait, where did elite go? So I'm lost now. Elite, here we go. 1 more ability, 1 higher equipment than NPC guidelines. So that means the damage they deal is 1 higher. And the armor rating is 1 higher as well. And the equipment, they can have 3 items, and a monster can wield all 3 at once. So that's a rule for, like, say you include like their claws, the bite, and their tail slash, for example, for a dragon. They could use all 3 of those things at the same time. Doesn't mean they can attack with all 3 at once, but they don't have to equip the claws and equip the tail. They're just there, right?
Sure. They just have them.
For these guys, I think they just have. I don't really think they usually use their body that much, right? They're more about magic and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Like what does combat? I mean, if they can make themselves grow, you imagine that part of that is them like clawing at.
Well,
the
that's
heroes.
not in yet, is it? That was.
Oh, sorry. I guess I'm just assuming that's a thing. So it's
Yeah, I think it. I don't think it ties into the story. If the story is they're feeling inferior and small, if they can actually make themselves bigger as well, right?
Okay, so is that oh, interesting. Because I have the impression that if they did do that, it's kind of like puffing your chest up, right? They could do it for a little bit, but
Oh, okay.
not. Yeah, that was my because when we talk about them holding great physical and magical strength and having like being made by the giants, it's not an illusion. Like they can do it, but it's not something that it's something that might exert them. Like they could exert themselves to or break their armor to become like temporarily large or something. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, we could also get them illusion magic so that they look large, but they aren't actually as well.
That's true. They could be. That's 100% valid. That sounds interesting too.
Okay, so we have to give them some kind of melee weapon though. Are they going to bite people? Do you think, or do you think they're going to claw at people?
I imagine them as weird, big-headed creatures.
Yeah, it's probably biting.
Biting sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah. So actually, so we're going to kit them out with not that good weaponry, as it were, and rely on the parlays and the magic instead. So they're just going to have a small weapon, which is the bite, and that's it.
Well, yeah. The thing is, their bite has to match their bark, right? Because there has to be a menace to them. Because it's one thing to parlay with them in the wit, but if they win and the heroes can just like overtake them easily, you also don't want that, right? There needs to be a menace about them in order to make the wit part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then do we imagine they'll have a shield or something? They'll have defensive magic.
Sure.
Let's. Do you think they can have something physical to defend with? I don't think so, right? It's more their magical defenses than physical.
Yeah, either the trickery, illusion magic, running away. Yeah, I can't imagine
running away. Yeah,
being like a shield type.
Okay. So we'll give them. Go on.
Oh no, I was just looking at the chat again, and Dale's suggesting that if they do have the ability to summon or call on woodland creatures, whether or not they're more malevolent woodland creatures. But the thing to keep in mind is that since we're placing these creatures in the Pen Cower, it's going to be different from they're not. There's forests obviously in the Pen Cower lands, right, and groves and stuff.
Yes, yeah.
But if they're on, if they dwell amongst ruins, the ruins are often going to be on the wide sweeping plains, right? So whatever creatures they summon should be creatures that are more prairie or plains type creatures. So birds would make sense from that point of view, or like burrowing creatures or something.
Cool. And now we're going to kit out our Spriggan with some abilities. So we use the table to give them their attributes and their armor, and we said before that they're cunning and trampling. So we'll go to cunning. As I said before, cunning creatures are tricksy with innate magics.
They have a magical nature.
Yeah.
They have so when you look at so if I'm looking at cunning on page 182,
yeah,
for example, and you have like 3 attributes. You have 1 magical nature, 2 cunning nature, and 3 shifting nature.
Yeah.
Is that basically where you start when you're just gonna write those down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing I do is go to those, and then I don't always give them the first one first. I did rank them in like usually the power level of them, but you've disappeared, Kurt. have you gone? Well, I guess we'll be finishing soon anyway, but it would be nice to still have Kurt here.
Can you hear me now?
I put you back on stream. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I disappeared for a second.
Yeah, now you're good.
Okay, excellent.
So
you tricked me. then you banished me to the other world, to Anduin. Anyway.
So yeah, what I was saying was that I do I use the suggestions and go straight to there. I did rank these in the power level, but you don't have to use them, all of them. Sometimes I just pick number 2. Sometimes I pick number 3, depending on what you're making, right? But yeah, and then if there's something's missing, then I'll make something. Or if I want to change something to adapt it, I'll do that as well.
Sure. So these are all, even for you, these are all guidelines.
Yes, yeah, always. Okay, so we'll give them cunning, a magical nature, which says the creature knows a spell for each cunning ability it has, and it casts them without risk to itself, but only on targets it touches. It is advantaged with and against spells, but disadvantaged against metal weapons. So there's our kind of like Fey thing, and Otherworld thing.
Swords, my only weakness.
Yeah. All right, dude. All right. Yeah. Okay. So then we'll do cunning nature as well, and then we need to pick up spells for it, I guess. So cunning nature. This is cunning 2. And what's that? This is the one about parlays. So if their group insults it and ends a parlay with it, then it will be supercharged against them. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And now we want to give it some spells as well, because that is its nature. So we said it would be, was it solar and what was the other one? Can you remember?
Solar and elemental, I believe.
Elemental, that makes sense.
If I'm not mistaken.
I don't think you're mistaken. Solar magic. Let's see. So sun's touch. Until next sunrise, it illuminates its space with light and blooms plants, ripens fruits. It's quite benevolent, and it can cure people. Rapid roots. This is more like it. Choose one for the target. It treats all regular terrain as difficult terrain instead, or it treats all walls and gaps as difficult terrain. So this allows it to walk, to grow roots, to walk on places that it can't otherwise do, or it can like entwine the foes in roots to slow them down and hinder them, right? So let's just write spells for now, and then we'll write rapid roots from solar. And we could also make it heal itself. That would be really strong. Um,
That could be strong. Yeah.
yeah, you can
Killing
regenerate.
itself is one of the most annoying things adversary can do.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then was the other one elemental? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, elemental magic. So we're imagining earth magic probably, and earth magic requires vigor, so that's perfect because we've already said they're really strong.
Yeah.
So let's do earth. We got elemental blast, which is just a straight damage dealing spell, and we'll say earth vigor.
Yeah. So when you imagine that he's doing an elemental burst, Earth, he's basically throwing rocks at you.
Yeah, or just like
Yeah.
branches, like roots, that kind of thing. And
Fair,
also,
fair.
they were going to do perfect. We said they cause like weather storms, right, and things like
Oh,
that.
right.
Well,
Yeah, yeah. They
air is wit, right,
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
witty, so that's perfect. So earth for vigor, and then air. Dude, I love it when things work like that. It's like I know it's game rules and we could change it if we wanted to, but we don't have to change it. It already is perfect.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
then-
Dale in our. By the way, if you're new to the chat, please join our Discord because there's some conversations that happen on Discord too. And Dale posted a picture of a Spriggan in the Discord, and it's like a semi-realistic, giant-headed creature, which is it's quite funny,
wow.
with red eyes and like with baby Spriggans and so on. Where did you get that art from, Dale? I'd like to ask you.
Yes, I would also
Sorry,
like
all
to
right.
ask that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's much different from the style than the Avallen style, but it is very cool.
Yeah. Element.
Very troll like.
And then what's the final elemental mastery? Oh, that one actually makes a storm. So okay, elemental mastery because it makes storms. So we said we could only have as many spells as it has cunning abilities, and we can have up to 4 abilities. So
Well, I like so another part of the being a cunning creature is the shape shifting aspect of it, right?
yes,
So, and whether or not it's an illusion or it's actually him changing his body, that does vibe with the traditional Spriggan idea of them being like giant like. So
true.
how would you feel about making them like the shifting nature is their ability to increase their size kind of thing? It's like a shape shifting thing.
I'm sold. That's perfect as well. Yeah, we'll do that as well. Then.
But
Yeah.
but in the description in the book it says like this lasts for as long as either likes or lives. But I like the idea of it being limited, right? They can do it. I don't know. Like you can take that liberty, right? It doesn't have to be.
Yes, I agree.
Like Spriggan shouldn't be able to do it for a long time. It should be able to increase its size, be terrifying, but it exerts itself or something like that in order to do that.
And should we get rid of the power to shape change its foes as well? That feels like more of a Fey thing than a Spriggan thing.
Right.
So let's just say you shape change itself. And shape change itself into a larger form for how long should we say? Just for an encounter, essentially. Or do you want to last less than an encounter?
I don't know. What do you think? I don't know what the right answer there is off the cuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm saying until it's exerted. So that means you could like fight it, and then you can make it become small again during a fight, for example.
Yeah.
Into a larger form until it is exerted. Yeah, cool. And then one of the benefits of that, I guess, we could. So then that's an interesting way. We could like give it bonuses while it's in that form, and then those bonuses get taken away as the fight goes on. So it could have increased vigor.
Yeah.
Maybe its vigor shouldn't be 3 naturally. Maybe it gains later more by doing this. You see what I mean?
I for some reason the number I don't know where I read that it could grow 3 times its size. I don't remember where I read that. Like, could that be a thing where it's like 3 times its size? Where is that? No, maybe I'm just making that up.
I think Dale might have mentioned it. I don't know if it was his idea or if he got that from somewhere. Or
yeah, I'm trying to remember if
or did he get that idea because it's part of the myth?
Yeah,
it says it's a D&D reference. Oh
D&D
no.
reference. Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, that's where it is. So you go to theater. So yeah, because in D&D it does matter. It does matter the actual size of creatures matters in D&D, right? Because they go from small to medium to large, whatever.
Yeah.
So in our game we're a little bit more fluid with that, so it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
So just large is fine, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So for the spells, then I'm going to do Rapid Roots to entangle people, Elemental Blast, and Elemental Mastery to make storms and stuff. I guess we could have done Trampling as well. Well, actually, we still can. We've got 4 abilities. We've used 3, so we've got 1 more ability left for this veteran foe. You got?
Can Trampoline be shifted to its, like, it can only use it when it's large?
I love it. Yep. I like where your head is at. Let's go with Trampling. So Trampling is for creatures that are powerful threats that are slow and predictable. These are supposed to be large creatures, so yeah, that makes sense. So I guess Hefty, yeah, this creature has +2 to weapon damage and armor rating, but it cannot rush. Yeah. So maybe that's just what it gets when it becomes large. It gets bonus, because that's what we were saying a second ago. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I like that.
While large, it becomes Hefty.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
And what I like about this too is until it's exerted. So if they could win against a Spriggan in like some sort of wit battle or spirit battle or
if they could trick it beforehand to do something
that would exert them, then they would make it.
Then they would be able to do this. Yeah. I didn't think of that. That's really cool.
Wait, does that mean then that it can't shapeshift if it's already exerted?
Yeah, exactly.
So you should. So should that be part of the rule set too? Like,
yeah.
This
creature can use the action to shape change itself into a larger form until it is exerted. While larger. Yeah. And then.
Thanks for the D&D reference, Dale. Just want to make sure shout out. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's where I thought it was from the D&D entry.
Can I use this while it's exerted? Yeah, cool. And then we're almost done. So we have our stats. We don't give it much equipment because it's just a creature. We could have given it more, but we didn't. Loot. The final one is loot. So in Avallen, when you kill creatures, monsters, you can create things from the flesh, the being, the like the venom sacks of a snake, or I don't know what. I guess the Spriggan might be like their hair. It might be part of their skin, things like that.
I mean, would it be too macabre to make it their brain or their skull, like something from their directly?
Yeah, I imagine it's multiple things. So I imagine hair and brain. Yeah. That's cool.
Which should be used for some kind of growing potion or something to increase your cognition.
Yeah. So we have that built into the system. So
exactly. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, if when you see that, that's what you could do. End up using stuff for and have fun with.
Yeah, exactly. Hair, brain. So this is for hunting and trampling, crafting, basically. Cool. And now we have our Spriggan. I guess the one thing that's missing is that we said it's an elite foe, so that only takes up 2 slots in encounter. So we probably build it out with, like you said before, creatures. Maybe it has animal friends or animal friends.
Dale mentioned that. Dale suggested their ability to summon things.
I guess not friends, but minions. Did we settle on what kind of animals that would be? Also, I'm losing my voice. We should stop soon.
Okay, yeah. So, well, the Penkar, because they're mainly in the plains, you could maybe it's better to be general, like whatever's local to them, because there's not necessarily just Spriggans on the plains, but obviously animals that are like its relationship to animals should be the same as a relationship of the giants to the Spriggan in a way, right? It's like a symmetrical relationship. So they want creatures that can kind of compensate for its disadvantages when it's small, I imagine. So in the
So
forest, that could be boards.
wolves
On the
and
plains,
you talk about
that could
bears
be or bears. Yeah,
or wolves.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. On the plains, maybe that means like Dale suggested carrion birds. I could also imagine snakes could be a thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. The idea of creating like a unique minion for them. I don't know if we necessarily need to go that far, because then you're creating like another creature on top of this bridge to think about
Yeah.
when like cognitively the heroes are already thinking about this creature in front of them. So whatever one can do to sort of deal like a Spriggan, but it should be met again. The creatures that they summon should complement it. So if it summons a bunch of gerbils, that's not gonna be so interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But I could see them vibing with like birds.
Yeah, I think
for
so
sure.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like intelligent birds or carrion birds, like crows, things like that. Like crows can be quite intelligent, and like and when it summons minions, it might not even be for him to kill, right? It could just be to serve his purpose of either distracting. It's like a wit based weapon, right? He
Yeah.
wants to use the animals based on his wit. He wants to like distract them so that he can either get the upper hand in his large form or distract the heroes to escape.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So animals that vibe with their wit, I think, and birds make a lot of sense for that because birds are quite smart.
Cool. I like it. So I guess we haven't made an encounter for heroes, but we've made a whole bunch of stuff about Spriggan that you can use to make an encounter, right? And maybe we will use it in the future.
Yeah, and yeah, as we develop this project that we're working on, that could be something we do behind. We don't necessarily have to do that on stream since we're coming to the end of it. That's something that we could also do like on the back end. And then bring
but I feel like it's so much easier now. Like I can see what a Spriggan is, how it exists in the world, what it does, and why it would come into conflict with heroes, and what heroes could do to solve it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I might go back and flesh out this story with a bit of flash fiction.
Oh, sweet, dude! I love it. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah. The hard part about a story like this is, it's the whole like he does something smart, and then you have to actually figure out what the smart thing is. So
I've been there so many times.
Yeah. The secret. So the secret. Do you know what the secret of that is?
No, tell me. I would love to know the secret of that.
Well, the general convention is to work backwards.
Yes, sure,
wisdom, right?
Sure, okay.
It's to work backwards. Like you have to figure out the answer, and then, but that can also come off as somewhat disingenuous sometimes, right? So you have to be careful that it doesn't feel like you're doing something that's I'm so clever, and it feels convoluted. Have you ever watched Sherlock, the show Sherlock?
Once or twice, yeah.
Yeah, so Sherlock could come back. It's an entertaining show, and Sherlock's like, "Oh, this is the solution," but because they work backwards to find some of these solutions, it feels like, "Oh, I guess there's that one narrow thing." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they work backwards from it, and sometimes that could be great, and sometimes that could feel like, fine. I guess he's smart, but it's not actually smart because you're just the answer, and then you're creating a question for it. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see. That's always the challenge of story writing. It's quite fun. That's what makes it fun.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Dale's suggesting a giant naked mole rat as a Spriggan minion. And that could be fun too, like especially on the Pentara lines. And I think the good thing is though to leave it a little bit open, right? Like
exactly.
Yeah. So I like that idea as well. So definitely use that if it vibes with it. But yeah, I think it'll change too is once you come up with a specific encounter.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to.
Then you don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Pigeon your hole. Don't pigeon your hole, guys.
Don't pigeon your hole.
All right, cool. Let's call it here.
Cool. Yeah, that was fun. So are we back next week, Darren?
We are back next week, Kurt. Same time, same place. Do I know? I don't know what we're doing next week, actually. I think I want to come up with maybe some just general lore. Maybe it's tied to a creature. Or maybe you could pick a creature. Maybe you should choose for next week. Yeah.
Yeah, let's think about it. I'm not gonna choose on the stream. We'll make it a surprise.
Yeah.
No, thank you to the chat. Thank you, Dale, especially. Thank you, Muna Buns. Thank you for everyone who's hanging out and watching, watching us make stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fun. I'm having a good time. So cool. I guess we'll see you next week. I have a stream in like 30 minutes with Chrissy now. So we do a music and art stream right after this. So you can find me on also if you like music or art, but I imagine it's very late. What time is it in your neck of the woods, Darren?
Just non-stop creativity from Kurt. It is 1:17 a.m.
1:17. All right, get some sleep,
Yeah.
guys. Get some sleep.
But the Americans
All
can
right.
join you.
Yeah, if you're in America, please, and you like music, I'm gonna play guitar while she does art, and we're gonna make jokes about everything.
Yeah.
Similar to this stream, but more American art focused.
Yeah. Post a link in the chat when you can. All right. Thank you, everyone. This
yeah.
has been awesome as usual. Cheers, Kurt. This is wonderful. I love the Spriggan tale you came up with. I love the lore that we added about the Fiethra. This is super cool. And,
I like the I like where we're headed. So thanks, y'all, and we'll chat. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye. Next week.
Okay, later.